Thank you so much for having us today. We're Team 6. My name is Emily Gilbert.
I'm Amanda Vitullo.
Patrick Jenkins.
I'm Allison Grant.
And today we've been asked to come here and present to you, sorry, that's okay, how you guys can best create a decision support model for dispersing funds for these high-speed rail projects. So, quick overview of what we hope to outline for you today is we want to present to you two different things. First, we want to talk to you about a short-term plan, and then we want to talk to you about the feasibility of that as well as our long-term plan for your decision-making processes. Okay, so what we envision for this project is you all will be taking applications from various state entities, interstate groups, and things of that nature. So within those application processes you see in front of you, we gave you that handout that kind of has a checklist of things that we would hope that your application would contain. We don't want to go into too much detail about that. We feel that that's pretty straightforward and you can look through that and make some considerations with it. But for the short term, we know that you're trying to disperse funds very quickly. With that 3-month turnaround time, we are going to look at some very specific metrics for you to consider when choosing those initial disbursement funds. We want you to consider these things now, but we also want you to consider these factors in the future for the long-term decision-making processes. So first of all, we're looking for population statistics. For any of the groups that are coming before you, we want to consider that when you're connecting two areas, that it should be impacting a large number of people. So we're looking for one of the two cities to have a metropolitan population of 1 million or more, and the second one to have about 500,000 or more. In addition to that, we're looking for areas that are going to be between 100 and 600 miles in distance between the two. We think that that is the way to best capture a market that would help you to be less competitive with the airline industry. Up to 600 miles you can get there in about 3 hours based on the current train technology. So we think that that makes the most sense. In terms of budget projections, we want the groups coming before you to be able to match at least 50% of the funds. And then we're also going to consider the job creation capacity that this proposal will be able to provide. So in terms of creating jobs in the short term for setting up these new high-speed rails, and then the capacity to have long-term jobs in the maintenance projects, things like that. And then on top of that, the ability to create these pocket communities along the way for people to have greater options in terms of their job markets when they're actually applying. For example, if you're living in one place and then along this rail system there is a place 100 miles away from you, if you can get there that quickly, you have more options when you're applying to jobs. And then finally, there's environmental considerations. In the short term, we're looking for projects that for states that have already demonstrated a past high environmental compliance and that are in good standing with the EPA and with their local environmental groups. So in terms of our short-term considerations, this is what we want the main focuses to be on for now, and later we'll show you what we hope your long-term decision-making model will include as well. So now my colleagues are going to talk to you about some of the strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I'm sorry, and we do have some examples, I forgot. We have some examples of communities that we think could be good examples for you to consider. Not that we're saying these are places that you need to be targeting, but we just wanted to show you the potential. So for example, we're in Syracuse right now. Syracuse to Richmond, Virginia provides several possibilities along the way. It goes right through Harrisburg, but you can see the opportunity for offshoots to Allentown, Philadelphia, Lancaster, Baltimore, maybe even all the way to Pittsburgh. And it's within that mile range as well. And we've got a couple other examples. So Buffalo to Chicago, again, it goes through Ohio, Cleveland, Toledo, possibly the ability to go up into Michigan. And then with an intrastate model, Texas is a great example between Dallas and Corpus Christi. Along the way, you're going to see places like Austin, San Antonio, and then there's, again, opportunities for more pocket communities as you go through. And then another example from the Pacific Northwest between Seattle and Eugene. Again, so many opportunities for these communities along the way to receive economic development and stimulus from one of these projects.
So in developing our application process, we wanted to highlight some of the strengths of the program itself. In the actual application process specifically, we were looking to bring out the transparency and the comprehensiveness of the decision-making process. That way, everyone can see that how to make the best proposal, how it's being decided, etc. Another strength of the program is the fact that this is a way to increase regional travel. Up until now, trains have been seen as a more cumbersome means of travel, but technology has caught up with that, and we need to now catch up with that technology. This should hopefully become the most, the fastest means of regional transportation. Second, this is the more efficient means of travel. With air travel, you have travel to the airport, security lines, etc. We all know. So with train travel, we're looking to make the trip more efficient. Finally, it is certainly less expensive to create the infrastructure for this particular use than it is to update the current infrastructure. And in this way, we are using the funds in the most efficient way possible. With strengths, of course, come some weaknesses. Trains do tend to travel slower than planes overall. While there is obviously more of a hassle with air travel, there is a perception that air travel is going to be a lot faster. So that's one of the barriers we need to overcome, is the fact that people are still going to perceive that, oh, I need to get to this area, let me try to book a flight. So again, that's going to be something we'll need to overcome. If one usually travels by car regionally, this may not necessarily be a cheaper alternative. The train tickets may be more expensive than the gas you would use going through the regions. There is also the potential of community disruption. These are going to be running through smaller communities. There is the potential to displace small areas within communities, and that could be something that would be detrimental to the selling it to each community. Finally, there is the problem of the fact that we would be requiring 50% of the funds to be matched by the communities. This may make it a harder sell, as the communities themselves will start to feel the impact of the costs. So that would be something we would need to sell as beneficial to the communities despite the cost.
So getting into the opportunities, this obviously promotes economic development, both short-term and long-term. There's job creation in the short term, or people building the railway, and in the long term also people maintaining and working as employees on the railway. Also the job creation in the long term, our plan is to have 2 big cities and a lot of neighborhood communities in between. So these neighborhood communities and the 2 cities, kind of all the people in those communities, have more opportunities to have jobs elsewhere in different cities around where the track will be. Also the environment is an opportunity to reduce pollution. We think that this, obviously with the technology, the increase in technology, that the train will not pollute as much as a car would on the road. And also having this available for travel, this will reduce the amount of congestion on the roads, also reducing pollution as well. So for the threats, obviously the main threat that we all know is airports. The main problem with this is obviously it's a little bit quicker, but also people are more accustomed to traveling with air, and it's going to take time over maybe months and longer than that to actually start using trains as an alternative to airplanes. There's also safety concerns. With ridership increase, the terrorist threat always looms with more ridership in terms of trains or airplanes. And also another huge threat is the political opposition caused by the constituency. Many of these constituents might not want, they're involved with the environmental groups that don't want the train tracks running through their backyard. So they're going to lobby for the political, the people who are running their districts to oppose it. So this does loom as a huge threat to the system as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague to go over the long-term plan of what we should try to.
So in order to ensure that the process is all-inclusive and increase transparency, for the long term we will create regional commissions who will set the vision for high-speed rail for their geographic area and act as the initial gatekeepers for the application process. While we understand that gaining the approval of state, environmental, transportation, health and safety departments would be difficult for our immediate applicants, in the long term we would like to see applicants seeking these approval out prior to submitting. Upon gathering the necessary information, applicants will submit their application to the regional commissions, who will select 1 to 2 of the highest priority rail projects for the region, using our application process as a guide. Following this, the FRC will review all winning regional applications and make its final choice of 1 to 2 projects, making sure to evaluate the national scale effects that each regional project could bring. Ultimately, the awarded project will best meet the needs of the FRC's national vision at that point in time.
Thank you.
Like the use of the green dot.
Thank you.
We did too.
What's that all about with regards to Deloitte?
We like some really strong branding. It's very important to us.
A couple quick questions. Can you speak a little bit more on why you chose to focus on the endpoints of the path versus the entire intersections and the populations that the trains would intersect? And then also, how does your decision model tell me of those passenger or of that population, how many folks will ride the train?
Sure, so we decided to focus on the endpoints because we thought that it would be the best way to encompass a great number of people. So by choosing larger metropolitan areas, we were hoping to possibly influence people to want to move outside their area more conveniently and quickly. So the endpoints seemed to make more sense in that respect, and then we were hoping that by choosing those endpoints, it would kind of stimulate things along the way. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
How does your decision model tell me what my expectation regarding ridership will be?
Well, we believe it's going to increase because the endpoints are both high-end cities and in between are smaller cities that we're trying to really target. So we think that these smaller cities and the people are going to have more opportunities to get to these bigger cities quicker, so it might stimulate the economy and give them more opportunities to get jobs in the bigger cities.
And we're also hoping that these would be in regions where there's not currently like an airline shuttle between the two locations. For instance, I know from Syracuse to Philadelphia, there is no direct flight to that area. So something like that would make sense to help people get from an area like this to another large city in a very fast and convenient way.
Well, all right, I'm curious, in your research, did you uncover any regulatory requirements governing the use of these grants for this kind of work? And are there things that we as a commission need to be more aware of?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I quite understand.
Did you research how the grant process works in the federal government?
The grant process in the federal government. No, we didn't quite look into that.
I just wonder if there are constraints that would affect.
Sure. Yeah, we can absolutely look into that for you and make sure that we've got all of those points covered.
And you talked about creating regional rail commissions as part of the plan. I think that's a great idea, but can you go more into the benefits of that approach, and particularly, what would it take to create those? What partners would need to be brought to the table?
The idea behind it is that you want the experts from that area informing the process. We want to make sure that no region is left out of the process either. And so our intention would be to bring together the most influential individuals for that region who really have a good sense of the direction of that region and where it may be going, how the industries may be changing. They can set the vision for that region, and then they'll be able to see how these projects kind of align with that vision. From there, they'll move forward to the FRC. The FRC obviously has they're connecting all of these regions and looking at it, how it's evaluated nationally. And they're going to be able to pinpoint how all of the puzzle pieces come together. If they funded a project that was in the Northeast last time, maybe they're going to want to move forward continuing with the Northeast if that's how the national vision kind of aligns, or maybe they want to fund a project that's in the South. But it's just kind of to break down the process a little bit, make sure that it's informed by all of the necessary experts along the way, so that nobody is left out, and that kind of eliminate bias too. I think that that's really important, because if you have a national committee that they're maybe more biased towards stimulating economic growth in the West, you may not have a strong case for all of the other regions. So I think that was really important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.